stew on that for a bit, and I am going to switch my screen and take your guys' questions now. So without further ado, let me go ahead and switch to this screen here. All right, let's take the comments from Daniel's Hot Topics. Daniel's Hot Topics, what's up, my dude? He says, hello, Daniel, what up? What is up? Did you hear that Sony announced a Madam Web movie? Yes, I did. So I think I may have talked about that in 1 or 2 videos at this point. I'll make another video on the topic as soon as more info comes out. It probably has. But they announced that a little while ago. And that was, I think that was actually during the time that was during the time that Tom Holland was in limbo and like Sony had pulled out of the MCU and the MCU was like, no, we're not going to share, we want all the rights and you can't hold that back from us. And then Sony was like, screw you, we don't need you. And then they eventually like did some backdoor meetings and came to a conclusion that, hey, we can work together on this. So then Tom Holland's back in the MCU and more movies are confirmed. During that time of like what's going on, they announced that Madam Web thing, which can only mean one thing. Spider-Verse. That's it. There's nothing else that could mean. It's not going to be a standalone hero where she's her own person. I know they've written a story where they build up to Madam Web becoming Madam Web. I get that. The whole point of it, the whole point of Madam Web, her powers, her calling, her destiny, the whole thing is about destiny, but it's about the multiverse of Spider-Man. It's just the Spider-Verse. It always has been, and it always will be. And the point was, Sony was saying, listen, Marvel, we don't need you. We can make as many movies as we want. We can have our own universe, and we will. You get to either be a part of it, or you can back the heck off. And we'll get all of our characters and take them back to our house and play with our own toys. So Marvel was like, no, please, like take us back. We need Spider-Man really badly because all we have is Captain Marvel. So like they were really eager to put it back together. They pulled out because they thought Sony was going to cower back, and Sony said, screw you, we've got Madam Web, we can do our own multiverse, and everyone loves Venom, so tough noogies, we're going to make our own Spider-Verse, and they have Tom Holland. So now that it's all back together, they never said they were going to stop making the Madam Web movie, but why would they need to? It just opens up more possibilities for multiverse. So they can have they could do Ben Reilly, they could do Spider-Man 2099 in live action, they could have Mexican Spider-Man, they could have Miles Morales, Latino and Black Spider-Man, they could have Silk, which is Asian, they could have Spider-Gwen, which is white female, they could have 17 versions of Peter Parker if they wanted, they could have all of these different things. They could make a Spider-Man movie for every demographic under the sun with comic book precedent and all have it connected. That's the crazy thing. They really don't need Marvel. Marvel needed Sony. And so, yeah, there's no way they're going to back off on the Madam Web movie. It could only be a good thing for Sony to open up the multiverse, because if they make a movie on its own and it tanks, it was in a different universe. That's all they have to do. It's like they could be like, that was its own thing. It's amazing to me why they may not have thought of this sooner. Obviously, it was because they were playing nice and they were playing in the same sandbox as Marvel until Marvel was like, give us all your toys, because screw you. So, and you guys know me. I'm a Marvel fan through and through, but what they did to Sony was shady as heck. And I'm proud of Sony for standing their ground. Obviously, they came to a reasonable compromise. But I'm really excited for that Madam Web movie. I hope it's not about her origins, honestly. I hope it's actually about Spider-Man. And that's a weird thing to say because it's a Madam Web movie. I hope they kind of tell her origin a little. But growing up watching the Spider-Man TV series, which is where I was introduced to Madam Web in the 90s, they didn't give you a lot of backstory on Madam Web. It was about Spider-Man. He gets randomly called by Destiny herself, Madam Web, to save the multiverse from a madman. And that's what happened. So it's, you just go along with Spider-Man. They could even start it with a different, they could start with Ben Reilly and have Ben Reilly be the called, and then comes over and meets, for instance, Tom Holland. You know what would be crazy is if they had Harry Osterfield, the best friend of Tom Holland, if they had him play Ben Reilly, if they did his hair like orange or something, so he's like a redhead, they could do Ben Reilly redhead, you know, that, or I think he's like strawberry blonde. I was always confused about whether or not he was slightly redhead or if he was blonde with a weird color. You know what I mean? Like, because with comic art, it can sometimes be hard to tell. And in the TV show, I thought he looked like a redhead at some times, but sometimes other than that, he looked blonde. So it's like, is this just artistic ambiguity, or is it like, is this just me? So anyways, I've always seen him as like a redhead, but whatever, doesn't matter to me. Although there's a drastic lack of redheads being represented in comic book movies now. They all get, and I've talked about this multiple times in my hashtag, in the hashtag not my Ariel video that I made, defending Ariel and defending the other argument as well, showing both sides of the reasoning. I said that basically every redhead in superheroes right now is pretty much being replaced and race bent to be African American. Almost every single one. And I made a list about that. You guys can go watch that video if you like. I'm not going to cover it here because it's going to take too long. I need to wrap this up. But regardless, yeah, so Madam Web, I'm excited. Let's get it done. Open the multiverse in the MCU, open the multiverse in the Sonyverse, and go nuts. Let's just get some stories told. So with Daniel's Hot Topics, he says, I won't even watch Batwoman. The show is just another street level show. It's less than a street level show. It is like really bad. Like, I would encourage anyone who wants to make any kind of critical assessment of the show, anyone who has anything negative to say but hasn't seen an episode of the show, go watch one episode of the show. You'll have all the ammunition you need. If you want to criticize it, I think it's fair to, you know, at least open that up and take a look. Perhaps you can do it on the CW app if you'd like. It's free. But it's not a good show. That is my opinion. It's also, my opinion is corroborated by the actual critical reviews and by the audience scores. And if you watch the audience from the premiere date all the way through to the end of the first season, and the fact that Ruby Rose left the show, which could be, it could be a number of reasons why she left the show. It really could. It could be anything. It could have been so much drama that we would be losing our minds. But she just kept it quiet. We don't know. We really don't. I think it's because the show sucked. And I think she knew that. And I think she knew she's better than that. She deserves better roles than what she's getting on CW. It's hot trash, in my opinion. And it's not because she's a woman. It's not because she's gay. It's not because of any of that. It's because the show sucks. Arrow started really well. I think it started to suck in the later seasons. You know, it's just because sometimes the writing works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the actors are great on screen, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you connect with the characters, sometimes you don't. It's, you know, it just is what it is. Some shows are great throughout the entire series. Lex Luthor throughout Smallville was always great. 100% of the time. He was always fascinating to watch, enjoyable. You connect. You can be like, what the heck? What's going on? This character is not that. And it wasn't Ruby's fault, I don't think. It could have been, but I don't think. In my assessment, it wasn't the acting. It was literally everything else in that show. Not a good show. Anyway, that's the last I'll say on that. But it says here, Daniel's Hot Topic says, I like sci-fi shows like Smallville, Flash, Legends, and The Mandalorian. The only reason why I will get the first season of Batwoman will be for the second episode of Crisis. I started by watching the Crisis and I was like, hey, she's actually pretty good. I'll watch the show. And that's what happened to me. I watched the crossover and she was good. I watched the show and it just kept going down. It was not good. So that's pretty much all I'll say about that. Enough there. But yeah, I love The Flash, Smallville, love it. I'm not currently watching The Flash. I think too that show also started to dip because it was like it's all about Team Flash. No, it's not. It's not about Team Flash. Team Flash should have just been Caitlin and Cisco and Wells until Wells was gone. But Caitlin and Cisco was all you needed. Just keep it small, keep it simple, and keep it about Barry. For goodness sakes, we don't care about Iris. We don't care about all of these extra characters that just keep coming in. It's all about like having our own little Avengers. It's not. You're not. Iris was a journalist. She's supposed to be his love interest. She's not the leader of Team Flash. She's not as this was what killed it for me was when Barry was like, you're just as much the Flash as I am. I was like, absolutely not. 100% no. The Iris West in the comics was his reason to fight. It's like if a guy goes off to war, right? Like you talk about a World War II film, you get the draft, man goes off to fight for the freedoms and protect our rights and our land and our country and our homes and our people. The family stays at home. They're in spirit. They're his motivation. They're the reason he wants to make the world a better place so that his family can have a better world to live in. They're his heart. They're his motivation. They're not out there training, working, starving. They're not out there getting shot. He is the hero. They are the family members of the hero who make the sacrifice of letting him go to war. You know what I mean? It's different. You're not the Flash. You're simply not, Iris. You're not the Flash. That was what did it for me. And it's like, I like the actress that played her. But again, that's another redhead from the comics that got turned, that got race bent. Again, not a big deal. I never really cared for Iris in the first place. The show was like the first place where I even remembered her name. So it's not a big deal in that situation. I would say Mary Jane Watson needs to be a redhead. I would say Mira from Aquaman, thank God they kept her redhead and the way that she is. There's so much push to change not just characters, not just regular characters. It's almost always redheads. Why is it always the redheads? You know what I'm saying? Like Hawk Girl was a redhead. They made on CW, she's now not, she's not a redhead. What's up with they did it with Wally West, which again they already did Iris, so like making Wally, there was comic book precedent there. But again, even in the comics, why the redhead? Why was it redhead Wally West changed to race bend? Like that's the question. So and again, you guys know my stance on this. I'm classic originalist. I'm very like nostalgic oriented. So like for me, the way that it was when I grew up is the way that I like it. That's usually the case. Not always, but usually. I actually really like what's his name? Keenan I can't remember his last name, but the guy that plays Wally on CW. I really like him. I think he was one of the most enjoyable parts of The Flash to me was when he became Wally. Loved his character. I love the way he plays him. He's fun. He's upbeat. And you could feel that he genuinely wanted to learn and be the Flash when he was trying to do that in the show. His acting was good. And I love that. So he was one of the better solid parts for that show for me. But again, it just begs the question, why all the redheads? You know what I mean? Does someone in CW or like just in DC in general hate redheads? Like, or even in Marvel, it happens in Marvel too. Redheads getting turned into, race bent characters. Really weird. But anyway, that's like, that's where you start to get into like theory territories. Like, do people hate redheads? Like people in creative positions, I mean. So that's like a question for you. Let me know if you guys feel like that's happening right now. I'll create a comprehensive list for you, and then we'll run through that, and then I'll just make that the question of the day or something. So then, okay. Oh, and I think this one on my YouTube is saying, okay, I lost my place for a second, but I found it. It says, Daniel's Hot Topic says, I loved Ming-Na Wen when she was doing martial arts. The fighting, the shouting, or Kia, that spirited shout. Yeah, Kia! That whole thing they do in martial arts. It was all pretty sexy when she did that. Oh, wait, I missed one from you. Sorry. So let me start from the first one. It says, Daniel's Hot Topic says, was watching The Mandalorian episode 5, the episode with Fennec Shand, played by Ming-Na Wen. I love that fight between the bounty hunter guy and Fennec when she kicked his A. It was funny. And then loved Ming-Na Wen when she was doing martial arts. The fighting and the shouting and the kya, the spirited shout they do with the martial arts. It was all pretty sensual when she did that. I don't personally, I never considered her like personally attractive. I just thought she was a great actress, and I love actors that are totally into martial arts. I don't know if you know, but she was Mulan. She was Mulan. She was the voice of Mulan. She's a savage. I love her in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think she's a great actor. I think she was perfect for the role of Fennec Shand. Again, The Mandalorian doesn't take a lot of chances with their casting. They play people to their exact strengths. And I think they did that very, very well with casting Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand. So to me, I agree. I thought it was really cool. It was not a lot of fighting that happened, but what did happen, I was like, yeah, that's great. It worked perfectly well for me. I hope she's not dead. I hope she does get to come back, because I would like to see a resurgence of, for instance, Bill Burr's character and the entire crew that was in episode 6, the jailbreak, join up with Fennec Shand and a bunch of other bounty hunters for like some giant either siege or getting back at the Empire or something like that. That'd be really cool. I love Bill Burr, so I'd love to see him come back. And Ming-Na Wen, of course. I hope she's not dead. I hope her body was just unconscious or wounded severely. I hope she's not completely dead. It did look like she died, but we don't know. So then after that, we had Daniel's Hot Topic says, I think they are doing Madam Web movie because Marvel is doing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So Sony is competing with Marvel, and they want to do a multiverse movie themselves. That is very probable, but it's also, I think it's more than just competition, because they are also working in tandem. Like I mentioned before, it was announced during the dispute between Marvel and Sony that Sony was going to do a multiverse film as well, being Madam Web. Regardless, I think they were planning to do that anyway. Madam Web was something that, like Amy Pascal, even though she's not in charge of Sony anymore, when she was in charge of Sony and they did that interview with Kevin Feige, she was talking about, yes, they're going to cross over. We've got plans. It's going to happen. And Kevin Feige's there sitting like nervously, like, someone cut the camera. She said something she shouldn't. Multiverse was always on the table. They wanted to wait till they got past Endgame, because obviously that was going to involve separating time streams and things like that. But yeah, it could very, very well be competition. And I think there is that involved. But I think the main driver was just that they have so many stories they can and will tell, that having an established multiverse doesn't mean you have to use it, but it means you have the ability to use it. And that's very liberating for Sony. Plus, it allows them to make excuses for like crossing over films. So now that there's a multiverse in the MCU and a multiverse in the Sonyverse, even though they are technically crossing over already with Tom Holland in Far From Home and Homecoming, it's already linked. We know that from the Morbius trailer. I already broke that down. I'll talk to you guys about that later. But you can go anywhere you want now. So like if they want to do a crossover again, it could happen anywhere. In an alternate universe from the MCU, and also an alternate universe from the Sonyverse, it could happen in one of these linked up universes. It's a liberating story plot device. You know what I'm saying? So yes, it very well probably started with an air of like, this is our backup plan in case Marvel screws us. But it also works as a leveraging point so that they can work with Marvel more as well, I'm sure. And anyone else they want, honestly, if they wanted to do a crossover with Hellboy, they might be able to arrange that. Like, think about that. Like, they could do anything they wanted, because it could be a special standalone thing with the characters we know from the MCU and from the Sonyverse. Like, that's bonkers to think about. Like, it's like an episode of Scooby-Doo when they cross over with Batman. It doesn't mean they're in the same world, but for that episode, they are in the same world. You know what I mean? So, like, it's limitless. It's liberating, so they can do whatever they want. And I like that. I really do. All right, so then next we have, so is Sony doing movies in the MCU or their Sonyverse? If they are doing movies in the Sonyverse, that means it's not canon to the MCU, which is a shame. I think they're going to, I think that it is definitely going to be part of the MCU for the Tom Holland stuff. Morbius and Venom, I think that was part of the stipulation. Like, you want Tom Holland? We're going full MCU. Because after he came back and they dropped that Morbius trailer, we saw evidence of, and I broke this down, without a doubt, we know that Michael Keaton is the Michael Keaton from the MCU. Tom Holland's films, Homecoming and Far From Home, both take place inside of the MCU, but they are 100% Sonyverse films. And they're not going to be separate from Venom. Morbius has been verified since day one that it is going to be inside of the Venomverse, which is now the Sonyverse. It's just terminology. That's all we're calling it. It was the Venomverse, but they renamed that. It's the same thing. It's the Sonyverse. But we know that the Morbius trailer, being in the same universe as Venom, has now confirmed that it is in the Tom Holland MCU verse. And then also, Venom 2 is now adjusting their marketing to reflect the fact that it's in the MCU as well, with Spider-Man. Big things happening. Big things. But I do think that it is now taking place inside the MCU, and that was probably, very, very likely, one of the definitive, requirements from Sony when they bargained back to get Tom Holland in the MCU, because Kevin Feige was the one that ended up coming back. I think, or it was Bob Iger, because Tom Holland got drunk and then talked to Bob Iger on the phone crying and was like, please, I want to go back to the MCU. Fans want it, I want it. Let's just make it happen. Bob Iger was like, okay, fine, so let's make it happen. Calls up the heads over at Sony and was like, look, we really do need this. Sorry we had to try to play ball the way we did. I guess I might not even have said that, but basically just let's make a deal. And Sony was like, you want a deal? This is what's happening. Morbius, we're dropping this trailer, and guess who's going to be in it? Your Vulture, Michael Keaton. From our films, from the Sonyverse films, this MCU is crossing into our Sonyverse, and it's going to be probably one and the same. We're still calling it the Sonyverse, because there's room for things that are to be created by Sony that don't necessarily have to involve themselves in MCU-specific films, but the continuity is going to remain, I think. I think that's probably part of the stipulation, and that's probably why they're also okay to move forward with a multiverse film of their own, Madam Web, so that they could plant characters in films like, what's his name? What's his name? Night Thrasher or something. I don't remember what the name of the character is. There's a few characters that are like their own anti-hero heroes in the Sony canon of characters that they're going to make films for. They could drop that in a Madam Web alternate universe so that it's Sonyverse, but it's separate from the MCU Sonyverse. You know what I'm saying? Because Tom Holland is Sonyverse and is canon in the MCU. Same with now Morbius and Venom. And what's going to happen, very likely, is that characters that the Marvel Universe does not want will probably take place in alternate universes for Madam Web, where Tom Holland has to go through Madam Web to get to these other problems. You know what I'm saying? It could get convoluted, could get weird, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay to let it just play out. People are smart enough. I mean, there's a lot of casual fans that are just going to watch and not care one iota about tracking the universes. There's going to be a lot of people that try to track it and might get confused, but I think the vast majority of nerds like you and me are going to be just fine. If we see a character that was from the MCU in this, we're like, okay, same universe, we get it. It's not that hard. So, and for those who have a hard time with it, they've got people like us. So that's what's going to happen. So then in this, it says, so you're going to watch season 7 of S.H.I.E.L.D. I stopped watching S.H.I.E.L.D. because it looked like it takes place in another Marvel timeline and not the main MCU. you know, it sucks to say because that's kind of exactly what happened. It started out being like, yes, this is a show that kind of takes place in the MCU. It is 100% in the MCU, and we're going to reference things in the MCU. Marvel, the films, do not reference downstream to the TV shows. It does not happen until now when the films are going to be made by Marvel Studios instead of Marvel TV. Marvel TV is basically done. I think they actually just abolished that. I think there's, other than this last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think there's nothing left. Everything over there is pretty much done, and they're planning to do away with it so that everything can fall under the Marvel Studios banner, controlled by Kevin Feige, other than other entities. I do think I will watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't think I'll be following episode for episode. I'll probably like wait until a couple of episodes, then, you know, watch a few of them. My wife does like that show as well, so we might watch that week to week. It just depends. I haven't even seen the trailer for it, honestly. Like, I've been kind of behind on that. I had a little bit lower of an interest for that, unfortunately. I just got really busy, distracted. There's been a lot going on too, in the world in general. So yeah, I'll probably get on season 7. I don't think I'll be tracking it on time. But I'll let you know, because I do enjoy the show. How many seasons of Loki do you think they may do? I hear it is a mini series for now, but then I read that they renewed it for season 2. I hope so. If S.H.I.E.L.D. can have 7 seasons, Loki, a fan favorite, can. I think I'm a little skeptical because I think that Loki is not going to be adult Loki. I think it's going to start out for the most part with Tom Hiddleston, and then it's going to transition into either Eichel or just Kid Loki. I think it's going to be a bridge into what's it called? Yeah, the Young Avengers. I think it's going to be a bridge into the Young Avengers, and that it's actually going to wind up phasing out Tom Hiddleston's Loki, at least during the TV setting, and then just introducing a younger actor that's going to play kid version of him, who is actually a struggling good guy, based on what they've done in the comics to build up the Young Avengers. Because that's where that, by the way, if you guys didn't know, that's exactly where this is going. All of these Disney Plus TV series, all of them are setting up Young Avengers. Every single one is directly linked to a Young Avengers character in multiple ways. If not one, multiple. Hawkeye is about Kate Bishop. WandaVision is about the twins. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to introduce Isaiah Bradley, or is it Isaiah? Elijah Bradley. It might be Elijah Bradley. It's the grandson, not the grandfather, but the grandson. The younger one becomes Patriot. He is also a Young Avenger. That's going to branch directly out of that show. And then also, what's the other one? Loki is also a key proponent of that. They've already introduced Cassie Lang in Endgame, so we already have her. She's already a teenager. That's already set up. And who else am I missing? I know there's a few others that. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Captain Marvel 2 is going to introduce Hulkling, who's half Kree, and half Skrull. That's something I think is going to happen in Captain Marvel 2. And I think, I don't know which show or which movie or whatever is going to do this part, but it could be Ant-Man 2 or Ant-Man 3. But I think that Kang the Conqueror and Iron Lad are going to be introduced at some point. I think that might happen in Ant-Man 3. I could be wrong. I don't know. There's a lot of proposed theories about Ant-Man 3, including the Fantastic Four and a few other things. But yeah, so that's kind of more or less where that is. So let's go ahead and take the last comment. This has gone on for quite some time. This is almost a 2-hour video right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just wrap this up. So it says here, Daniel's Hot Topic says again, but what happened if Sony and Disney have a falling out and Sony leaves and does their Sonyverse solo? What does that mean for their canon? their canon will be completely unfettered, undamaged, because all it means is they have to go off of the previous films they already had canonized. We know that Iron Man was canonized into Sonyverse canon because they won't be able to use Iron Man anymore, but the past still remains. The history still remains. And so you just won't see, if that happens and there is another split of Sony and Marvel, Tom Holland will go back with Sony. We'll still have Morbius. We'll still have Venom. You're going to have Black Cat. You're going to have Silver Sable. Tons of villains. You're going to have every villain that was in Homecoming, every villain that was in Far From Home. I think that's close to like 16 actual and hinted at and Easter egged villains scattered throughout those 2 films. All of them at your disposal, and so many more. 900 characters from Sony that they have at their disposal from Marvel that they legally can use. They're going to do it. And so whether or not that means that we'll get to see Spider-Man in the future, which won't be the case if Sony goes home without Marvel, it won't really hurt. It's not going to hurt Sony, I'll tell you that. The split between Sony and Marvel will only hurt Marvel. Sony will actually be so much better off on their own than they will be in the MCU, because, for instance, one of the main criticisms of Tom Holland's Spider-Man films is that he's Iron Man Jr. People don't like that because it takes away from him being the inventor, being the creative genius that he is. It gets undercut by him being the underling to Iron Man. So he doesn't get to shine. And that would not have been the case if Iron Man wasn't in Homecoming. Now, I'm not against that personally. I can see the drawback. I appreciate like Andrew Garfield being the inventor much more than either of the other two. But at the same time, it works because it's in the MCU canon. When you take Sony's characters back to Sony, they're just going to keep making good Spider-Man movies. Keep in mind, Marvel did not make Homecoming. Marvel did not make Far From Home. Those movies flippin' rocked, and those were made by Sony. So there was creative influence from Kevin Feige, which, by the way, like, it's really good to have Kevin Feige involved in your creative process. It really, truly is. He's a genius. That being said, it's not going to be that hard for them to make close to $1 billion or more with a Spider-Man property, because every Spider-Man property ever, except for the Into the Spider-Verse film, which is an animated, made over $700 million. That's a big win, and that's including Venom. All of them. They're all made that much, including Spider-Man 3, including Andrew Garfield. All right, they're all big time wins, big successes. Spider-Man is selling out theaters everywhere, and even if theaters aren't open, it's gonna sell. They're not gonna have a problem. Marvel will have the problem. Marvel's gonna be like, well, crap. What do we do now? They basically killed off and gotten rid of a few of their biggest players. And now they've left us with Captain Marvel as the supposed lead of the new MCU, which almost, not everyone, more than half, much more than half of the fan base, very upset with, because she's not likable. She's cool, she's just not likable. I know there's going to be a lot of females that disagree with that. I'm sure that's probably the case, but she's not a winner for half of the audience, because half, mostly the men, are not fans. And that's, it's not a sexist thing. It's just because Brie Larson's not a particularly likable actress. Even her attitude when she's playing Captain Marvel is all like looking down her nose at everybody and just like sneering, and it's just not. It's not friendly. It's not likable. I know she's trying to be like tough and whatever, but it just doesn't come off that way. It comes off very like snooty. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it is. And I think Marvel will be hurt much more by the loss of Spider-Man than Sony would be of the loss of the MCU. Really, truly, I do. Because Marvel's going to be fine on their own. Sony would also be fine on their own. In fact, I think Sony might actually be better off. And I don't want them to split. So keep in mind, I say that, but I do not want that to happen. I do not want them to split. I want them to have the shared universe. I like that, and I want to see that. So, but it wouldn't hurt them. That's what I'm saying. Okay, and then yeah, that's it. All right, that's all of the comments for today. If I could leave you guys with just one last thing, that would be this. Please, if you guys get a second, if you guys want to support my channel and help me grow and get to that 1,000 subscribers, please do this. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. That is completely free for you, costs you no money whatsoever, and it's going to help me grow a ton, and it's going to help me get to the point where I can then make money on this channel from like ads and things like that. That'd be super awesome. It's going to open up so many more opportunities for me on the platform that are not available to me now, like including mobile live streaming. Once you get to 1,000 subscribers, there's certain other criteria as well, but there's plenty of plans I have for that as well. Going out and interviewing people on the street would be a lot of fun. So help me get to that point. I'd love to do that for you guys, and that's totally free. All you got to do is like, share, comment, and subscribe, and that's going to help me grow. So another thing that I wanted to show you guys is, if you get a second, go over to the link in my description below so you can check out my TeePublic account, where I can sell you guys t-shirts, mugs, sweaters. You got like onesies for babies, wall art, notebooks, mugs, pillows, totes, tapestries, pins, phone cases, laptop cases, sweaters. They even are selling masks now, by the way. So that's really fun. You guys can get yourself any of these designs, or if you want to get one specific to what we are talking about, we also have DC designs. You can check the different labels on the left side here: Star Wars, fantasy, Power Rangers, Marvel, DC, that kind of thing. Check it out. Check out all these different designs. Click on one you like. If you guys like Adam West and he's your favorite Batman, you can go ahead and click on that one. It'll take you to the actual page so you can see the different t-shirts, designs, fits. You can get long sleeve and that sort of thing, or you could even go ahead and get yourself like a sticker for $2. Lots of fun options that help me grow as a YouTuber, because this is another way you can get money in my pocket so that I can get like better lighting, better, cameras, microphones, resources that are going to help this channel improve and get better, and so that I can make more Funko Pop videos for you guys, which I haven't gotten a lot of time to do, but I have plenty of Funko Pops I wanted to do reviews of for you, including but not limited to this giant Fantastic Four The Thing, which I got today. So I will be able to show you guys all that and more if you guys get yourself some sick merch, just like you see down below me and on the screen. So anyways, let's go ahead and cut this to the end. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and check the link down in the description for some more merch. Stay tuned for more right here on The Stuff of Legend. Hey guys, D-Lo here. Thank you so much for this video. Give it a thumbs up, and remember, all of your nerd friends, I know you got them, and you know who they are. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about this discussion. Let me know what you would like to see me do a video on next. Subscribe to the channel because you're a legend, and we have that in common. Also, be sure to turn on notifications to be notified right away when I upload my next video, or so that you can be alerted when I go live next time. That way you'll never miss a thing.